Hey Jeremy, this is Keaton Everett with ABC, going over your pitching video from camp. We're going to go through and talk a little bit about your pitching, your motion, break down your mechanics frame by frame, and kind of make sure we're getting in a good spot where we're maximizing our body, delivering the ball consistently, being able to repeat our mechanics, making sure that we're nice and healthy. And so, you're doing a good job at using your body. It looks like you're a big kid. And the most important part of height and why coaches and scouts like tall pitchers is tall pitchers we're able to use our long levers to develop the different angles. That makes it a lot easier for that hitter. The more we can kind of use that height, drive that ball downhill, the more leverage we have on it, the harder it is to hit. And so it's something that you need to work to your advantage, and it looks like you're doing a really good job at doing it. So right off the bat, what we look at, balance, posture. All right, so you're doing a good job at staying over that back foot through that leg lift. A lot of times you'll see kids kind of go backwards, but you're doing a good job. You're doing a really good job at getting that hip closed off. All right, and so now what we want to try to see is, at this point, our hips start to go forward as our hands start to break and this foot goes down, and you can see you're getting some good drive with that leg forward. All right, your hips are getting going first. All right, which is good to see. So you're initially starting off pretty good. All right, basically the whole key of velocity mechanics is just our hips. Is we want to keep our hips closed as far down the mound as we can get it down the mound as quickly as we can, and that's where that velocity comes from. So the more we can kind of, just think about leading with that hip, don't let that foot kick out in front, and you can see you're doing a pretty good job. Now what we want to kind of look at here is this upper body. All right, you initially kind of have a pretty good lower half, which is the main ingredients there. All right, but what I want you to kind of key off of is this front elbow and sort of this upper body lean. So as we get forward, so one of the spots that we look at is our foot strike. So once our front foot first hits the ground, all right, looks like it's about right there for you. All right, you can see how this front elbow is down and this back elbow is up. All right, we got a little bit of lean forward in our spine, and so right here we're leaning forward with our upper body. So we're losing a lot of our power just because we're kind of leaning forward. All right, what we want to try to see in this position, all right, is this front elbow up a little bit higher because it hasn't rotated yet. But the biggest thing is we don't want this back elbow up above this shoulder this high. All right, and what this does is this kind of puts a little bit extra pinch, a little bit extra load on that shoulder, so it's a little bit harder on that shoulder. So at foot strike, once this front foot hits the ground, is we shouldn't have our posture leaning forward. We still should be back over our back hip somewhere. So we're still kind of leaning, maybe back at this point. But we want to try to get our shoulder a little bit, not as far down. With your arm action, maybe it'd be about right there. Get that glove out there. And so now we're not leaning forward. Now our angles at foot strike aren't this way. They're still flat, energy stored up, ready to get going. All right, so that's just the biggest thing, is pop this elbow up, and don't really worry so much about trying to fix this back here. Is that with this lean back and this elbow back, that should take care of this. We really don't try to mess around with that backside a little bit too much. It usually can be kind of fixed with a couple other things. So just making sure we're staying back, keeping that elbow up. Because that lower half, you're getting some good extension here. So now what we're going to look at is your torque. So does your lower hip start to rotate before your upper body? You can see that hip's coming through before that shoulder is, and so you're doing a pretty good job at starting that torque. Okay, so now what that initial sort of lean I was talking about is, what this is going to do is this is going to cause you to pull off early on this front side, and that's going to cause you to pull off your backside and lose that backside, and you're kind of going to rotate and get out front a little early. So as you come through here, all right, your elbow kind of corrects itself a little bit. So you can see how, your elbow kind of pops down here. So we'd want to try to, maybe see this point here, back at that spot a couple frames at that foot strike there. So just try to get, that'd be ideal, that spot there. So maybe your elbow's right there, that front elbow's there, and of course you're not leaning, but something like that. But what you're going to see through your release point is you can see this glove start popping back towards your belly a little bit. And then as you come through and release, you can see this back knee kind of come straight towards that catcher. So here's your release point. All right. So you can see how it kind of forms that sort of that angle right here. All right. There's your release point there. And now your head's kind of back behind your foot here. All right. So ideally what we like to see is you staying through that backside. One of the way that will help you do that is getting this glove out over that front foot. And then what you're going to see is you're going to drive all the way through that backside. So right here, instead of getting this angle right there, you're going to see that back foot still on the ground, and you're going to drive that head and that chest on over that front foot. So now we're driving this triangle. All right, so right here, you got 2 feet on the ground. All right, if you kind of think about if you're boxing, going to punch somebody, are you going to get more power with 2 feet on the ground or 1 foot on the ground? And the same thing sort of pitching. We want to drive all the way through that back foot. So we're getting out here, back foot straight through, driving that head and that chest down over that front foot, because right here you're losing that backside. You're kind of using all that power and energy sort of shifted up top, towards that upper body. So now we're up here. Now all this is still doing all the force instead of, that initial lower half. So that's just something to be aware of, because you got that initial start, that initial lower half is really good. It's just a matter of sort of staying back a little bit longer, staying through that back leg, and you're going to be able to, really maximize that height and that body to really, progress each year and each season. So, anyways, overall though, pretty good. It's really solid. Just a couple tweaks here and there, but you kind of got the hard parts down. Now it's just a matter of staying back. And getting out over that front foot. So anyways, hopefully you had a great time at camp. Thanks for making it out, and hopefully we'll see you again with ABC.